A lot of times I look at people on social media, they're driving their Ferraris, their Lambos, they've got amazing vacations, perfect bodies, and beautiful smiles, and they're making millions of dollars. Here's what I think to myself. I wonder what's their backstory. I wonder, did they just inherit all that money or did they actually create wealth for themselves? That's why I started this podcast. And it's especially interesting because Samantha, my guest on this podcast, has such an interesting story about how she got to where she is. And I had to get her on the show. So I want you to watch this first part where she starts breaking into that story of how she got to from where she was to where she is right now.
The Content Capitalist Podcast.
How you first started creating content. What was that triggered you to start doing this?
If you're somebody like me where you didn't have a big marketing budget, you didn't have a track record, nobody knew who I was. All I had was a heart, a passion, a big vision, and a deep care to want to help a lot of people. So I had to start going, okay, how can I market myself if I don't have a big marketing budget and I don't have a track record or experience? And I realized, well, I have to be the marketing. I have to be it. So for me, it just was really, learning about personal branding strategy and to recognize, well, I need to be the asset. So how can I build a captivating story about who I am? And how can I create a captivating story about like building a story around a business? And so literally I got this from just being the number one person in my business studies class at school and kind of researching things. And I've done no university degrees. I've done nothing. Literally, it was like understanding about personal branding and then just researching the shit out of it. I went to an entrepreneurship school and I learned a little bit more about that. And I realized that, like, how do these people get known, get seen, and get remembered online? And I realized the way that they do is at a personal brand, and the way that then they express that personal brand is content. So for me, it was very organic, and it was about me tapping into something that didn't cost me any money to really start to monetize it.
Did you ever watch a movie and get so inspired by the character or the actor that you felt like you wanted to reach that level yourself? When Iron Man first came out like 20 years ago, I thought, that's interesting. I want to be like that. And that lasted a few short minutes. Now, for Samantha, she saw two very inspirational characters that helped her to elevate the vision of what's possible for herself. And that really set her on that journey to becoming the millionaire influencer coach that she is right now. Was there a certain source, like a person who you looked up to, or a book or a course or something that kind of triggered that spark in you?
Over time, it became the Key Person of Influence Institute. So their book, Key Person of Influence. But at the beginning, it was probably more like the Oprahs, the Beyoncés, the inspiring people that I would watch on YouTube, that I would just go, wow, there's something special about them. And I just learned from how they had a really impactful message that enrolled people into a vision of the future. And so my earliest memories as a little girl is I used to spend time under the big trees and I would write songs and poems, and I was just captivated by a vision. And that's what drew me to these people. They inspired me and I wanted to be like them. And then over time, it was when I reached out to the people that actually had frameworks around that. And the biggest one would have been that Key Person of Influence book.
2 letters, starts with an I and starts with an S. Imposter syndrome. A lot of people wonder, do these people who are on these big stages making tons of money and all over social media, do they face imposter syndrome? I've asked this to everybody that's come on my show so far, and everybody's got different answers. And I think that her answer is going to surprise you. When you started creating this content of yourself and presenting it to the world, did you have what a lot of people experience, which is imposter syndrome? Did that hit you at all?
Yeah, 100%. It was more the fear to be seen. If it was more afraid that, like, inside I wasn't enough, or, do I know enough? Will people pay me? Will people attack me online? I was incredibly
And
afraid to
probably
be
all of the
seen.
above happen, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
And once it does happen, then all of a sudden it's less scary, right? It's just like, oh, okay, that's the
Yeah.
thought of it happening, of something happening that you never experienced before, I think is way worse than it actually happening in most of the case. I don't know about you. That's how I've experienced it.
Yeah, the mind likes to come up with, oh God, I can't survive the experience. But once you prepare to survive it, which is what I did, well, if somebody attacks me, how will I respond? if somebody's doing this, how am I going to respond? And that enabled me to just keep putting myself out there. But definitely that imposter syndrome meant that I didn't really take up space. I didn't powerfully communicate who I was, my client results. And I was afraid, well, if I start sharing content, what if people take me the wrong way, misunderstand me? And I can tell you all that happened. Every single one of those things happened. But actually, the best thing that came from that is a more powerful level of self approval and self love. Because all that fear of where I was afraid to be seen showed me all the places inside of myself that I wasn't loving and approving me. And as soon as I began to love and approve of those parts, I could show up online and let them parts of me be seen, and know that it wasn't up to others to understand them, love them, approve them. That power was within my own hands.
You know, something that bothers my wife so much is because I have a background in video making and doing that on a professional level. Whenever we watch a show together, all I'm thinking about and commenting on is that angle could be better, that edit could have been better, this was a mistake and that was a mistake. And I have a hard time actually getting into actually, just enjoying the film like she is. Now, that's the same thing for professional coaches. And I asked her the same thing as a professional coach who's making millions of dollars. What mistakes are you seeing others do right now? And here's her answer. What mistakes are you seeing beginners make a lot? Or let's just say across the board, even the seasoned veterans, a lot of times we make mistakes too. What are you seeing happen too often where it's like, nails on a chalkboard and you just wish this would die? What is that for you?
Okay, for me, it is that I'm seeing people copy somebody else's posts and then use that same thing. So you have everybody using, they're obviously all using the same business coach, and then everybody's using the same templates. And then what happens is people automatically cancel them because they've seen it a million times, that same template. Another thing I'm seeing is people also copying other people's branding and colors and not having anything that stands out and makes them unique. So although I'm spiritual and intuitive, everything that I teach and do is about having a framework, but having your authenticity and your authentic voice make it unique to you. And I think that if people keep seeing you as the same as everybody else and they already dislike those salesy posts or they dislike that same template, then your brand gets, lumped into that same thing.
Yeah, people
So I
don't get a
definitely
chance to know you, right?
yeah. The other mistake I see is people just assuming that people want the logical buying journey. That's actually what people want is they want to hear stories. Like engage people with stories and actually engage them emotionally, because a logical buyer is always going to have an excuse. There's not enough time, there's not enough money. An emotional buyer is like, I want that. I want that promise, I want that dream. They just move, they take action, they pay in full. So I think that people aren't using stories and personal branding enough, and they don't have enough confidence to really do something different that's actually going to get the attention. You doing something different gets the attention. And then you can learn to keep it by telling stories.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that recap of the 1 hour long conversation I had with Samantha. Now, if you're the type of person who wants to know all the nitty gritty details and all the stories and the other things that couldn't fit in the short video, then click this right around here to watch the full length 1 hour conversation I had with millionaire entrepreneur and coach Samantha. That's it for now, and I will see you in the next video.